They act like nothing happened, like you never existed, like your absence doesn't echo through their days. But late at night, when no one's watching, when the mask slips just a little, they feel it. That silence you left behind, that space only your presence could fill. They miss you, but their pride won't let them admit it. You were the one who reached out first, who cared deeper, who showed up when they didn't deserve it. And now that you're gone, they're fighting the one thing they can't control, the feeling of losing someone who truly saw them. See, pride is a strange thing. It protects the ego, but it punishes the heart. They'll tell themselves stories that they're better off, that you were too much, too emotional, too invested. They'll replay the arguments in their mind, but twist the ending just to make themselves feel like the hero. Because if they admit they miss you, they'd have to admit they lost you. And for someone who runs on control, that's unbearable. So they'll post their highlight reels, laugh louder in public, and tell their friends they're doing great. But you'll notice the timing of their online presence, the way they suddenly pop up, where you might see them, the way they mention you, without saying your name. That's not coincidence. That's longing disguised as indifference. They're searching for you in subtle ways, trying to feel connected, without surrendering their pride. Because to them, reaching out means defeat. It means exposing the truth, that your silence hurts, more than they ever expected. They never thought you'd actually stop trying. They thought your care was endless, that no matter how cold they acted, you'd keep chasing connection. But when you withdrew, when you stopped explaining yourself, something in them cracked. Not loudly, not in front of anyone, but quietly, in the corners of their mind, where your memory still lives. And that's when it hit them. You weren't gone out of spite. You were gone out of peace. You stopped fighting for what refused to meet you halfway. And that silence, that calm absence, speaks louder than any goodbye ever could. Now they scroll through old messages, not to reply, but to remember who they were, when you still believed in them. They play old songs that remind them of you, but turn them off halfway through, because nostalgia feels too much like guilt. They wonder if you still think about them, if your life moved on, without their name attached to it, if someone else gets to see the softness they once took for granted. And that thought cuts deeper than they'd ever admit. You see, people who lose someone rare don't always realize it right away. It sneaks up on them, in the silence, in the stillness, in the life that suddenly feels less colorful. They'll convince themselves they're fine, but they'll check your last scene. They'll revisit your page. They'll overanalyze every small sign of your detachment. And every time they see how calm you've become, a part of them wishes they'd treated you differently. But pride keeps their heart locked behind logic. They'd rather miss you in silence than admit they were wrong. Because the truth is, you didn't leave to punish them. You left to protect yourself. And that kind of peace is something they'll never understand until it's too late. They keep telling themselves it's nothing, that you were just another chapter, that they've moved on. But every time they try to convince themselves of that, their chest tightens a little. Their mind replays something small. Your laugh, your tone when you said their name, that look you gave them, that made them feel safe. They remember it all, even if they pretend they don't. Because you were never just someone. You were the mirror that showed them who they could be if they dared to open up. But now, without you, they feel hollow, not broken in a dramatic way, but quietly, in a way that steals the joy from simple things. They'll go to the places you once went together, but it won't feel the same. The air will feel heavier, the laughter around them emptier. Because when connection is real, you can't replace it with distractions. They'll try, though. New faces, endless scrolling, overworking, anything to drown out that echo you left behind. But here's the truth. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. And they're stuck pretending they don't miss you, while everything inside them screams your name. Late at night, they'll scroll through your photos, just for a second, telling themselves it's just curiosity. They'll notice the calm in your eyes now, the peace that wasn't there before. And it'll sting, because that peace means one thing. You healed in the space they created by leaving. They'll start wondering, who's helping you smile like that? Who's standing where they used to stand? But they won't reach out, because pride whispers. If they cared, they'd message me first. And that's how they lose you, again and again, without you even saying a word. They tell people they're fine. They even start to believe it for a while. But all it takes is one small reminder, a song, a scent, a place, and suddenly you're there again. Not physically, but in memory, in feeling, in the ache that won't fade. Because you didn't just leave. You changed the way they see love. You showed them what genuine connection feels like. And now, everything else feels like imitation. They'll meet someone new, and for a moment, it'll feel exciting. But then something small will happen, a phrase you used, a habit you had, and that spark will turn to comparison. Because when someone's soul has felt depth, it can't settle for surface again, and they'll realize you weren't replaceable, you were rare. That realization doesn't hit all at once. It builds slowly. Every time they try to forget, something reminds them you were real. They start noticing how empty validation feels now, how short the thrill lasts, how no one else seems to understand them the way you effortlessly did. You weren't loud about your care. You were consistent. You were steady. And that's what makes your absence feel so heavy. Because consistency becomes comfort. And when comfort disappears, it leaves an ache no distraction can numb. And so they start testing you. Subtle things, like watching your stories, liking old posts, mentioning your name to mutual friends. Not because they're ready to apologize, but because they're trying to see if they still matter. But your silence answers what their pride can't. You've evolved. You've outgrown the version of yourself that begged to be seen. You no longer chase closure from people who never wanted to understand you. And that power, they feel it. They may never say it out loud, but deep down they know they lost something they'll spend years trying to replace. And no matter what they do, no matter who they find, nothing will ever quite capture the peace that came from your presence. Because what you gave them wasn't attention, it was energy. It was real, and it can't be replicated. They tell everyone they're over you. They laugh it off. They talk like they're free. But when the noise fades, when they're alone with their thoughts, you show up in the quiet. They'll be driving, and a random song comes on. They'll freeze, because suddenly, they're back in that moment with you. Windows down, laughter echoing, hands brushing just enough to make them feel alive. And it hits them how something so simple felt like home. But instead of sitting with that feeling, they'll run from it. They'll open their phone, scroll endlessly, looking for anything to distract the ache. Because remembering you means confronting the truth. They pushed away the one person who actually saw them beneath the surface. And that's a truth their ego can't handle. So they start doing something strange. They watch you from afar, not directly, but through small glimpses, checking if you've moved on, if your smile still looks the same, if someone else gets the version of you they once took for granted. It's like they're haunting their own memories. Because every new version of you is proof that you never needed them to heal. And that realization burns quietly inside them. They'll try to rewrite history, tell themselves you were too intense, too emotional, too much, because it's easier to label your depth as drama. than to admit they couldn't meet it. But deep down, they know your kind of love was rare. It asked for truth. It asked for growth. And they weren't ready for either. So now they sit in silence, pretending they don't care, while their mind replays every word you ever said, especially the ones that warned them. You told them you were reaching your limit. You told them silence would come next. They didn't believe you. And now here they are, missing someone who once begged to stay. They might even try to mirror your calm, posting quotes about peace, talking about self-growth, acting like they've mastered detachment. But the truth? They're performing it. Because real peace doesn't need to be proved. And yours shows in the way you don't react, the way you no longer chase answers, the way you let things go without needing anyone to notice. That kind of strength unnerves them because they remember when you'd break down just to keep the connection alive. And now you're quiet. Now you're steady. Now you're free. And that's when regret starts to settle in. Not loud, but slow and constant. They start missing your small habits, the way you remembered what they liked, the way you noticed what no one else did. They start realizing you weren't trying to control them. You were trying to connect. And in pushing you away, they lost that safety. Now, no matter how much attention they get, it feels hollow because your presence wasn't performance. It was energy, authentic and grounded. And when someone's tasted authenticity, they can't forget the flavor of it. They'll want to reach out. They'll even type a message once or twice. Something simple. Hey, been thinking about you. But then they'll delete it. Because ego whispers again. If they cared, they'd reach out first. And that's how they keep losing you. Not through fate, not through distance, but through fear. Fear of being vulnerable. Fear of being seen. Fear of admitting they were wrong. But every time they hold back, they feed the distance. Every time they pretend they're fine, they bury another piece of what they felt for you. And though they might silence their emotions, they can't erase the bond. Because some connections don't dissolve with time. They just live quietly, in the spaces between memories. So they'll live their life, smiling in photos, laughing at jokes, acting like everything's perfect. But deep down, they'll carry your name in the quietest parts of their heart, not as someone they hate, not as someone they regret, but as someone they remember. Because no matter how hard they try, they can't unfeel what was real. They used to think silence meant weakness. They thought not responding meant you cared less. But now they know silence can be strength. Because you're quiet didn't come from apathy. It came from peace, from choosing yourself. After choosing them for too long, they didn't notice it at first. They thought you'd come back. They thought this was another cycle. You leaving, them waiting, you returning. But this time was different. You didn't leave with anger. You left with calm. And that calm, that's what broke them. Because nothing hurts the ego more than realizing the person who once fought for you has found peace without you. They start replaying everything now. Every moment they dismissed your feelings. Every time they made you question your worth. Every silent cry for understanding that they ignored. They remember it all. And for the first time, they see it from your side. That's the thing about distance. It makes the truth louder. They'll start missing your energy. In rooms that once felt full, they'll notice how no one listens. The way you did. How no one's presence feels as grounding. Because what you offered wasn't temporary. It was real. It came from love, not from a need to be loved. And now, in your absence, they finally understand what that means. They'll try to replace you. They'll try to move on. They might even find someone who looks at them the way you used to. But it won't hit the same. Because it's not you. It's not the energy that challenged them to grow. It's not the softness that came from your understanding. And they'll start to realize You didn't just care for them. You saw them. You understood the parts they kept hidden. And no matter how far they run, they'll crave that kind of connection again. But by the time that realization comes, you've changed. You're no longer waiting for their apology. You're no longer needing their validation. You're building a peace that doesn't depend on anyone's recognition. They see that glow, that calm, that new energy around you. It's not bitterness, it's balance. And that's what makes them spiral. Because the person they used to have power over now moves through life, untouched by their opinion. That's when their mind turns on them. They start wondering, did they ever really love me? Were they always this strong? Did I ever truly know them? The truth? They never did. Because they were too busy trying to control you, to actually understand you. And now, your silence is the only thing that speaks. It tells them everything. They refuse to hear when you spoke. And maybe one day, they'll reach out, not to fix things, but to feel close to what they lost. They'll test the waters with a small message, something casual, something that says, I've been thinking about you. And maybe you'll smile, not because you want them back, but because you've grown enough to see how far you've come. You'll remember how much you used to chase that message, how much it once meant. And now, it's just a reminder of how healing changes everything. Because here's the quiet truth, the one that no one likes to say out loud. You don't have to hate them to outgrow them. You don't have to block them to move on. You don't even have to prove you're better without them. Your peace is the proof. Your silence is the power. Your healing is the closure. And while they may spend years looking for pieces of you in other people, you'll keep evolving, becoming someone they couldn't have even imagined. That's the irony of love that goes unappreciated. It turns pain into transformation. You didn't lose them. You found yourself. And that will always be your quiet victory.